Okay, good evening, guys. Looks like most of us are here. Okay, Lanique, I see text. Just take care of what you need to do, and that's fine. Okay, guys. So, welcome. Trusted you have all had a productive week. We made it. I've been celebrating from last week that this is our final class out of the chapter, and like I said, looks like we made it. So I'm very proud that all of us are still here. Okay, you're saying still, hey, still on the read, Sydney? What are you saying? We there? Y'all can hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Oh,
I can hear you.
okay. Oh, okay. Yes, and Sydney is saying he is still on the road. Okay. Okay, that's fine. That's fine, guys. But welcome. Like I said, it's our last class in the chapter. Next week, of course. Remember to please send in your presentation by Tuesday at 11:59 so you can get your first set of points for your presentation. Please also remember that, yeah, when you present on Wednesday of next week, you have to turn on your camera. So, of course, we give you extra points when you look very nice and your face beat and you look good, okay? I'll remember Linique's first presentation that she did. Good people, good looking people with good hygiene make more money, okay? So we want to be those people next week to make sure we get all the points possible. And of course we want it to be participative, so we want each person please listen and be prepared to ask at least each person just ask one question. After the presentation, you can give some comments and you can ask one question. And so I guess I'll assign everybody next week. And please pay attention because, of course, you can expect one or two of the questions based on what we hear next week to be on the final exam. Okay, so we need everybody to participate. Um, Tonight we are covering chapter 2 and chapter 7. Last week we did an update on how far everybody was in terms of their mentoring. And so I trust that in the end, both the mentor and the mentee will find it rewarding and you'll have good information to share with us next week. So how are we feeling? I know it seems like all of us are on the road and almost there. So um, Candice, what about you? I don't think you got the opportunity to tell us last week. Um, but I see a hand raised. 1 second. So Clinton, go ahead.
Good night, all. Miss Bullet, I just had a question as far as
Wait, Clinton, you're breaking up. You're breaking up.
The presentation.
Check your mic, please. Check your mic.
You know, the questions that were okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you like lagging and you cutting in and out.
Oh. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
Oh, my internet. I just had a question as far, well, when I come off, I can log off. Okay, I had a question as far as the questions before, not the questions after. The questions after really don't pertain to my situation since I'm mentoring a family member. But the topics beforehand, how long do we have to discuss each topic?
Okay,
Like,
so just a paragraph.
The project actually be.
Yeah, so just a paragraph about how you establish trust what terms you meet on, how often you met, stuff like that, what y'all discuss and what the feedback was.
So can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but like I said, you're breaking in and out. Yeah, so I think we would have lost her. Yeah. Candace, did you have the opportunity last week? It seems like most of us need some time to, still get home. So I'm just trying to, have a discussion until everybody is in place. Candace, are you there? Yeah,
Yes, ma'am. Your question was, did I have an opportunity to?
tell us about your
Hello?
mentoring. Yeah, tell us about your mentoring last
I
week.
did last week.
Oh, okay, okay. For some reason, I don't have you on my list. Okay, I guess I need to listen to the recording and add it to my list. Okay, so again, we just want to make sure that you have sufficient time to complete your write up and submit it on time so you can get your first set of points and then be able to present. Now that we're having technical difficulties, please have Miguel's number on hand, and so you can make sure that your presentation isn't interrupted next week. So please, do a little troubleshooting and test your mic and test your um camera to make sure it's not working. I mean that it is working and that you wouldn't have any interruptions. Okay, so you can get the most points possible. Um, I see somebody joined us. NG, can you identify yourself? Okay, let's see. Oh, yes, I guess that's Clinton trying to get back on. Okay, Clinton, is that you, NG? Hello? Clinton, can the person NG identify yourself?
Yes.
Yeah, you're really breaking up. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, internet is not good. Yeah, about the mentoring. Yeah, the questions below was just there if you needed, some help, if you did decide to choose somebody from work and you wanted to answer some of those questions, then you could have, but if it's not somebody from work, then don't worry about including, these questions below, and that's fine that you don't include these. But we want a paragraph on the purpose, the communication, the trust, the process, the progress, and then feedback from you and your mentee. Okay, and so again, it says 300 to 500 word essay. Okay, so just enough to let us know how your process worked, what you discussed, and what was the final outcome. Okay. Any other questions? No, any other questions? Are we good with the date?
Okay, I think that's it for me.
Okay, all right, so we see the date here, and please send it to my email address. Okay. Okay, guys, so I don't know, Sydney, how far are you? Are you near home, Sydney, or no? You still a good ways out? Is Sydney there? Okay, guys, so nevertheless, let's I think, was it Benicia doing chapter 7 and Sydney is doing chapter 2?
I think I supposed to be doing chapter 2.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that's fine. Then you can start because Sydney is still on the road. Okay, so which version of the book do you have? Do you have 6 or 8?
Eight,
8?
the eight. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so if you would have, perused the chapter, you would see that the chapter has a lot of definitions. And so all of these definitions are very popular again on the final exam. Okay, and so it's very easy to pick them out. Can somebody mute their mic, please?
That's me. I can mute it right now.
Okay. Okay, so the chapter tells us about technology and then quality of life and individualism and uncertainty avoidance. Then it moves on to talk about e-business at work. And of course, during the pandemic, we saw how important e-business would have been, everything going online, trying to find ways for persons to pay online and to avoid all human contact. Then it goes on to talk about changes that supervisors can expect from e-business. And that's where they bring in cyber loafing. And, it is beyond me every day, when we wake up, the traffic the other day, it took me 1 hour to get from east to downtown between 7 and 9 o'clock. And I said, like, this is ludicrous. Why have we gone back into school? Why have we gone back into work? This traffic is just horrendous. And then the gas, it costs, just to get there. But a lot of people prefer to be in person, I guess, because at home, families don't really respect their space. When you say I'm at work, they still expect you to cook, watch the children, and do everything. And then businesses feel like persons won't be productive. And so that cyber loafing is the big issue why we all have to go back to work and sit through all this traffic. Then we go on, we talked about diversity already. And again, it's on page 35, it just hits again on workforce diversity. We talked about downsizing already. Does anybody remember what we discussed when the persons that are left? Remember, I talked about Finco letting go 129. They had 129 staff, and now only 29 are left, and they still have all the same functions. Does anybody remember what the term is for the persons that were left or are still there? Anybody recall? You're there, or you're still you're busy? Candice, do you recall? Naima, do you recall? Hello, y'all gotta talk back to me.
No, I don't recall.
Okay, so we would have covered that in chapter 5, okay? And it's called the layoff survivor sickness. So many companies are downsizing. Have we paid attention to the news? Just this week, where Twitter, I think, let go, was it 11,000 staff members? And I think 3,000 was left. And he basically said, if you intend to continue working here, you must be willing to work long hours and go hard and make sure that you give us the extra mile. And so many persons decided that, hey, I'm not gonna go hard and do extra work that I am not paid for. And so many of the Twitter employees made videos showing that this is our last day. We decided not to go hard. Has anybody been following that? Did we see that?
I saw it.
Okay.
I saw them doing TikTok.
On it, what would you do if Commonwealth Bank did the same thing and said, Lanique, be prepared to go out? I mean, you already going out, I know that, right?
Listen.
But be prepared to go out. We let 50% of the staff go. Be prepared to go out or go home.
I think I'd go home.
You would go home
because like you already, okay. you already working hard. Let's say you're already working hard, and so now they're asking you to work harder, and they're not in. Are they increasing there? But from what the girl said, I watched a girl who did like a video on Twitter. I mean on TikTok. Sorry, she said that they basically want you to do multiple positions for the same pay, like the people who stayed or who are expected to stay. And I wouldn't
Right.
do that. Now, if they increase in my pay, that's different. What
But
if
even
I
if
work?
they increase your pay, then the 11, I mean, that's 75% of the staff going home. I mean, how you sounds like you have to sleep there.
Let me tell you why I would stay, because at least at least they telling that to them up front. Right now where I work, people going home, departments, like downsizing, and the work getting thrown on the people who's like me without me knowing. I don't know what's going on, but every day I get some new duty to do. So at least if they had started this from the beginning and said, like how Twitter said, listen, we want you to work hard, do this, do that, I would appreciate that. At
Being
least
told and not you feel like you've been hoodwinked. Eh?
exactly. I feel like if they, when you're dating somebody, if they tell you right out the gate, listen, I ain't into nothing.
You know, this just for fun.
It's just for fun, right? Or
Uh-huh.
if they tell me put their cards on the table and let me
You can
decide if I'm
respect
gonna do
that.
it.
Yeah, you can
Right.
respect that. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good way to look at it. However, they are now being, I guess, the employee protection agencies and the labor boards or whatever are now investigating to see if it's even legal what he is doing. And many persons said that I don't know if any of you are active on Twitter, but Twitter used to be down at least once a week because they had a shortfall in engineers or engineering personnel who kept the website up. However, now since this 11,000 people have gone home, they said the website goes down like 3 or 4 times. So obviously they need the staff, and the people who are there are disgruntled, and they are experiencing this layoff sickness that we talked about in chapter 5. Okay, so keep abreast of what's happening, in the world and definitely in your jurisdiction. So you are aware, and when you become in these executive positions, somebody companies always come up with ways to cut costs, and they always looking at sales and the bottom line and what have you. But we still have to make ethical decisions, and hopefully that's why you are here, so that you will learn that even if um you know, you need to cut costs, you would do it in an ethical way. And so both chapters, chapter 2 and chapter 7, talks about ethics. Okay, what is ethics and how do we act ethically? Okay, so hopefully we make ethical decisions, and not only thinking about the bottom line or the company, but also um the employees. Okay, and I don't want to give you, I know it's been a long 14 weeks and we have a lot of information, and I don't want to give you overload, so we will just specifically focus on what's important and what will be on the exam. Then chapter 2 talks about social responsibility for organizations and how to react responsibly. And I don't know if most of you are aware, again, internationally, the big talks are climate change. Let me see, I want to say the right term. It's called, I just sent it to somebody. I was reading an article. Of course, we would have heard the term carbon credits. Then we would have heard, what do you call it? ESG. Have we heard that terminology on reporting standards for sustainability? And how, are we aware out there that there are ESG talks, environmental, social, and governance, measuring the sustainability and ethical impact on businesses and companies. Um, it says most socially responsible investors check companies out using the ESG requirement or criteria. Are we familiar with that term? Environmental, social, and governance? We there?
Can I?
Hello,
Can I?
Yeah.
good night.
Okay, so I'm here. I finally reached home.
Oh, okay, okay, good.
All right, environment, social, and government. Now, only thing I could connect,
Governance.
yeah, the only thing I could connect to this is what I've seen in the news, where a lot of the marketing, I guess, for our country, when they speak to like the government, the head of the government going off to different places, trying to show persons more or less or learn more about sustainability or to showcase us as a country, you know, that has that at the forefront. So I could say I know that that's like that's on the agenda. You know what I mean? That's like
Right.
something that the government is really
In
looking at bringing
discussion now.
forward.
Right,
Yeah,
right. And
yeah,
so we
more than
don't
it was in the
like
past.
yeah, we don't want to be left behind. So socially, I guess, we are thinking about ways to, I guess, cut down the use of paper. And so a lot of companies stop even using paper. Um, they they just do everything electronically. And all of this, I think, falls under their ESG footprint or their carbon footprint.
Yeah, even the
Um,
solar, remember they're doing the solar field, they're looking at doing now too.
Right, and then companies are talking about going green. Okay, so there are going to be some major changes. So just have on your radar climate change as well as um ESG, and all of that will fall under social responsibility, and how we are socially, or how responsible we are. Okay, and so we'll read about that. And like I said, ethics seems to be the, how do we maintain our ethics, as the world changes, or even when we're pressured, how do we remain ethically, or how do we make ethic decisions? And then chapter 7 jumps right into the decision-making process. So of course, there are 7 steps to the decision-making process, and we will cover those 7 steps. Then we will jump over to how do you develop alternatives. And so, believe it or not, very remedial. I always say, most people have a problem reading. They read 1 page and they fall asleep. Another problem is persons may read and they don't comprehend. And then once they read, comprehend, it's very difficult to make decisions. Okay. And there are studies out there that says that, women tend to be able to make decisions um, faster than men. Okay. So we will look at the alternatives, we'll look at decision making and the importance of it. A lot of people just tend to hope that when there are issues, it just goes away, and it doesn't happen that way. So then we'll talk about how to implement the decision. We will look at the conditions of decision making, and then we will close out again. Chapter 7 closes out on how to improve your group decision making. And again, all of us, are part of a team. And for many years, this is something to me, what has plugged up the system. We have these suggestion boxes, and we encourage the staff over and over to make suggestions, but we don't give any statistics on the suggestions. We received 100 suggestions this month. We considered 3 of them we are going to implement or do this. So here it is. We have, I would hope, an organization of very bright minds who, no man is an island. No, every day you were supposed to learn. I always say, well, I have some stuff in my head, but I can't keep too much stuff because it'll drive you crazy. As well, it still has to go out and research. I have to still call up my network and ask questions or get clarity. But all of this is about knowing where to go and who to ask in order to cut down the time frame that is required to research and then make a good decision. And so I don't think as organizations we use or we take advantage of the talent that we have. Like I say, we ask for these suggestions and we don't even give a statistic on, we looked at them and none of them were good. And so we need them to, better develop something. We don't even give any feedback on the suggestions. And we definitely don't implement them. And so again, I think that's a great loss to any organization because, you know, all of us add value, all of us make up the team. And so I think it should be everybody's job to brainstorm and try and think of uh the next target or why the targets are reasonable or smart goals or what's happening in the market or what's our new product or service that we want to go with. I mean, what is your take? Are organizations even asking anymore for the suggestion box, or staff are just like, that's a complete waste of my time, and so we don't even bother? What's happening? What has your experience been, Candice or Vanique?
At my branch, not at my branch, at the bank on the whole, we do suggestion boxes at each branch. And the suggestion boxes, Miss Bullet, days be hot. They is be hot because because I don't know, is like once, and the only person that reads them is the CEO. And then once you see changes are made, that's how you know he really taken into consideration everything that the staff is saying to him. So
Okay,
for the past few months, it's been hot. It was hot.
but that's excellent, Candice, because here Miss Bullet is saying we need to take advantage again. We are supposed to be hiring the best of the best, right? We're supposed to be talented
Right.
and educated people, and just because they in a certain position, we don't take their word. Okay, so it's good that we're going out and asking people to brainstorm. What about you, Crystal?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's excellent. And make sure when you become the CEO, you do the same. Crystal?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's the same. We have suggestion boxes at all of our locations. I know too that they do ask the staff opinions. So anytime, like we have like we call them surveys. They're usually quarterly, where they want to get a feel, or they call it like a pulse check, more or less, to see where the staff is morally, and also what more can be done. Even so, I know we also have we call it a kickoff, which is every Monday. We call it customer service kickoff. So whenever in the customer service industry, they open the floor for us to discuss any challenges that customers bring up, or any ways that we see as staff working on the front line, what can change to make it a more seamless process, or something that will show more appreciation toward the customers. So the conversation is had on both fronts. So organizationally, in a general sense, and also individually as well. So
Okay,
it's
good.
going to that.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Monique, y'all having the same experience?
With our company, we have this program, or what we call, it's called In Your Line. Is it In Your Line of Sight? I think that's what it's called. But the purpose of it is employees, you could come up with an idea. Let's say you come up with an idea, you would send your idea to HR. HR evaluate it, and if they do choose it, they pay you for it.
Oh,
So that's organizational wise. Branch wise, we don't want like a suggestion box or nothing like that branch wise. I mean, we have meetings maybe the management team mention once or twice if we have any suggestions for something in particular, but we don't really give suggestions like that
Okay.
branch wise.
Okay. Okay. Well, definitely all I want to say is this team, you know, you want to encourage teamwork. This team, especially that you are the head of, please take advantage of their knowledge, their network, and make them brainstorm and come up with new ideas at least, you know, once a month or once a quarter. And I promise you, it may not be every single idea that comes out that you may be able to implement, but some of them, and then keep the statistics to keep, you know, the employees encouraged so that they don't feel like, you know, it's just a waste of time. Because I know in my day it was just like a waste of time, and people always asked about their suggestions, and nobody even knew when the suggestion was made or where it was, or what have you. So, you know, we back in the day we did bad, but it's good to know that organizations have turned that process around. Okay, so
I
very
would
good.
like that. To think what they call it, challenging the status quo. So like how you would have certain processes in place already, and if you find that there's a gap, or even like say for instance something I think a guy brought up in branch before, where a transaction we were doing printed off like 4 pages, and the customers really only signed one. So the question was, why are we printing off all these pages if the customer's only signing one? And because it comes, you know, so many papers whilst we're working, and they were able to streamline that form so that it only printed one. You know, so that was a conversation that affected change, where the organization listened to a staff.
Okay, and that's excellent because you know how much
Mhm.
paper and ink they save. Remember, I told you all when we talked about cost, I told you all when I found out that my secretary's print the ink for her printer was the most expensive. She was printing 800 statements a month. We saved $10,000 by changing her printer. Okay, so all of these things affect the bottom line. Okay, so very good. Okay, so is Sydney you in place yet, or Beneath? Sydney there? No. Okay, what about you, Beneath?
I almost, yeah, almost. But I mean, I'm not driving. My husband is driving, so I still can read, but you just have noise in the background. My kids in the car.
Okay, so but let us give you an opportunity to get in. That'll be most important. So you could have some undivided attention. I don't know, is Sydney? We haven't heard from Sydney. Okay, Sydney is not home yet either. Okay, so let's look at chapter 2. Let's see what Miss Bullitt was talking about. Okay, so chapter 2, there's a news flash, and the news flash talks about the cultural variables. Um, and this is where we pick up these various, like I said, would be on the final exam in terms of technology, quantity of life, power distance, uncertainty, individualism. Okay, and so these are very important. And so this news flash, I thought was a good read and would give us some ideas on these various topics. Okay, so it says to date, the most valuable framework to help managers better understand differences between national cultures have been developed by Bert Hofstede. He surveyed more than 116,000 employees in 40 countries, all of whom work for IBM. What did he find? Hofstede found that supervisors and employees vary in 4 dimensions of national culture: individualism versus collectivism, power distance, uncertainty avoidance, and quantity versus quality of life. Have we heard any of those terms before? Krista, Candace, are we familiar with any of those terms?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Okay, so let's find out what these mean. What about you, Krista? And ever heard these words before?
Uh,
Individualism?
no, quantity and quality of life.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so individualism refers to a loosely knit social framework in which people are supposed to look after their own interests and those of their immediate family. This is made possible because of the large amount of freedom that such a society allows. It's opposite from collectivism, which is characterized by a tight social framework. People expect others in groups to which they belong, such as a family or an organization, to look after them and to protect them when they are in trouble. In exchange for this, they feel they owe absolute alliance to the group. Okay, so let's think about individualism or collectivism. What any cultures right in the Bahamas where you think this collectivism is, where um
The Chinese.
they take care of their family, right? Of course, right. So the Chinese are very collective, so are the Africans, so are the Haitians, right? Because let's think
Yeah.
about all around the world. There's a little China in most countries, there's a little Haiti in most countries. And then of course, you know that the Africans, once they go to a country, they form an association and they get together. Okay, so just so you know. Okay, so power distance is a measure of the extent to which a society accepts the fact that power in the institution and organization is distributed unequally. A high power distance society accepts wide differences in power in the organizations. Employees show a great deal of respect for those in authority, titles, rank, and status carry a lot of weight. In contrast, a low power distance society plays down inequalities as much as possible. Supervisors still have authority, but employees are not fearful or in awe of the boss. Is this true in the Bahamas? Do we respect these titles and the ranks? What happens in the Bahamas? Lanique?
You mean if we respect the titles in terms of at work?
Yeah, at work, do we respect the VP and the head of this and the head of that? Or the CEO? We respect those titles, correct?
Yes, we respect the titles.
Okay, what about the person sitting next to you?
No, that's the problem.
Right. Okay, so there's this power distance where
Right.
we respect all the CEOs, all the heads of departments, all the VPs, and we disrespect the person sitting next to us. Okay, and I think some of you would have taken customer service, and that's where we talk about colleague care.
Right.
Okay, because we want you to have the same respect that you have for the execs, for the person sitting next to you. Okay, so it says a society that is high in uncertainty avoidance is characterized by an increased level of anxiety amongst its people, which manifests itself in greater nervousness, stress, and aggressiveness. Because people feel threatened by uncertainty and ambiguity in these societies, mechanisms are created to provide security and reduce risk. These organizations are likely to have more formal rules, is less tolerance for deviant ideas and behaviors, and members strive to believe in absolute truths. Not surprisingly, in organizations in countries with high uncertainty avoidance, employees demonstrate relative low job mobility, and lifetime employment is a widely practiced policy. Okay. Quantity versus quality of life. Like individualism and collectivism represents a dichotomy. Some cultures emphasize the quantity of life and value things such as assertiveness and acquisitions of money and material goods. Other cultures emphasize the quality of life, placing importance on relationships and showing sensitivity and concern for the welfares of others. What would y'all say about the Bahamas? Krista? Your
Quantity over quality.
Of course, of course. Yeah, we gotta keep up with the Joneses. All the BMWs and Mercedes and the big houses is what we look at. Okay, and remember, even when we put this into context, persons that come to work at 7 a.m. and leave at 7 p.m., they are promoted. They get good reviews simply because they are there for many hours, right? And like I mentioned, some of them, they come at 7, I mean, say wake up 5 or 6 o'clock to get there. And so by 1 or 2 o'clock, they sleep. However, the person who comes in late is always chastised and seen as a bad employee, but that person may come in late, but may give the organization more productivity. And it's only 15 or 20 minutes late, not hours late. Okay, they give more quality than the person who stayed there for 12 hours. Okay, so we need to look at the person and find out, is this person giving me quantity time or is this person giving me quality time? Okay, all of that makes a difference. So it says, which cultures are the US supervisors likely to best fit? Which are likely to create the bigger adjustment problems? All we have to do is identify those countries that are most and least like the United States on our 4 dimensions. The United States is strongly individualistic, but low on power distance. The same pattern is exhibited by Great Britain, Australia, Canada. Those least familiar in the United States on these dimensions are Venezuela, Colombia, Singapore, and the Philippines. The United States scores low on uncertainty avoidance and high on quantity of life. The same pattern is shown by Ireland and Great Britain. The study supports what many suspected, that the American supervisor transferred to London, Toronto, or Melbourne, or a similar Anglo city would have to make a few adjustments. The study further identifies the countries in which culture shock, a feeling of confusion, disorientation, and emotional upheaval caused by being immersed in a new culture is likely to be the greatest result, resulting in a need of radically modify the American supervisory style. So in our jurisdiction, we have a lot of expats that would have come from the UK, from Switzerland. Are we finding that there are cultural differences, or is the Bahamian culture, we could just respect this person because they are VP, or are they from overseas? What happens in the Bahamas? Krista, you work with expats?
No, we do not.
Yeah, CEO is an expat. What you
But
mean?
I'm thinking, my CEO, who's our CEO?
Any from Bermuda or somewhere or Trinidad?
We don't have, like you said, that's power distance, so we don't have much connection, to say like how they handle them because they dealing from outside.
But what's the premise in terms of a CEO from here or an expat? What is just in Bahamian culture? We have more respect for the expat, correct?
Well, it would be the expat, and I would say too that a lot of times they conform to the needs of the expat.
Correct. So we don't have expat, like the book says.
No.
They will have to go and modify their supervisory style.
Correct.
Our expats are coming in and modifying the whole entire organization to suit their style, correct? Rather than immersing themselves into Bahamian culture, because they automatically think that their style is better. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I say we conform to them.
Right, right. Okay, just so you would understand what's happening in your environment. Okay, so then the book goes on to talk about what is technology, any equipment, tool, or operating method designed to make work more efficient. And of course, we know in these last couple of years, there's been a burst in new technology in terms of financial products and services. And I always ask persons, are you abreast of the new products and services technologically that your organization is now offering? Are we familiar? Do we know what artificial intelligence is? Are we keeping abreast to these changes? Does anybody know?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so tell us what artificial intelligence is.
So artificial intelligence is more, we call it like AI robots. So um, these would be the systems that would take the place of a human. So you lose the human element more or less. So now the system would be, working along with the customer instead of it being a face-to-face interaction. They'd have to more or less assist. So like say for instance at Scotiabank, we do have an AI robot. Our artificial intelligence is called Athena. Now what Athena does is it's basically whenever we need assistance in branch for for any technical issues, we have to notify Athena. So we would request assistance from Athena. So she would basically say, well, welcome, this is Athena, how can I help you today? What then they would say, show us, what do you need assistance with? And it'll basically give you a breakdown. Do you need assistance with the process? Do you have a hardware issue, a software issue, or do you just want to check on a ticket? So once you select which option, then it will ask for more information, of course. So then you would give a bit more detailed information as what it is that assistance you need. Let's say my PIN pad isn't working.
Oh,
Athena then, right. So Athena, then, again, this is just a computer responding back to me. So then
okay,
she
so
would
which
say,
position in the financial service sector has
mhm.
this artificial intelligence or Athena replaced?
Well, Athena replaces well, like I said, it's a middleman. So more or less what it does is it directs us to who is going to assist us, whether we be assisted by local help or we have to get assistance from Canada. So Athena then would reach
Right,
out
so
to
it
our
is
local. Uh-huh. Yeah, it replaces the human element
it
of
has
us
replaced
talking
the
to,
secretary, right, or the person who
right.
answers the
So
receptionist.
right. So we directly,
Right,
we don't,
right. That's what.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Right. So it
Yeah,
completely
I just
skips
trying to
us.
find out if everybody understands that
Mhm.
when they call an institution and that automated service answers the phone and says, press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press.
Uh-huh. That's another
That,
one. Yeah, so it's
that,
like an automated
that
system
has
that
replaced
assists you.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. And so that automated system.
Yeah. So AI would be like automated system.
Artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry? You said so AI is what?
Yes, artificial intelligence.
Intelligence, correct, correct. Okay. And then I always encourage persons to our FinTech hub in the Bahamas is regulated by the Securities Commission. And of course, there's big talks about digital asset now. There's a big talk about crowdfunding. Are we all familiar with crowdfunding? Candice, do you know what crowdfunding is?
I went through it in my credit and international banking class, but I can't remember exactly what it is right now.
Okay, so crowdfunding is GoFundMe. Okay, so GoFundMe was designed for Americans and Canadians so that Uncle Sam can get his piece of the pie, right? And so it's against the law, even though a lot of Bahamians use it. It's against the law for Bahamians to go and sign up anybody on GoFundMe. In fact, I think they even closed it off. So you have to be in America in order to do it, but you should be an American citizen or Canadian citizen. And so what the Bahamas has done has created its own GoFundMe, crowdfunding. Okay, and that sits on the live platform and they administer it. So if you go to the Alive website, you can pull up crowdfunding and you'll see the various charities that you can donate to. I can't remember, our X does crowdfunding for businesses. And so the other day, they were supposed to be building a Red Lobster. However, I don't think they collected sufficient funds. So again, let's think about that. Let's just say they wanted a certain amount, say $100,000, but they only collected 50,000. So that was insufficient for the Red Lobster, I guess, to continue. And so they closed it out. And so that is regulated by the Securities Commission to make sure that those persons who would have gave money can get that money returned back to them. Okay, because imagine if it wasn't regulated, that means if the Red Lobster people did want just run off with that money, they would have been able to. Okay, so make sure that you understand exactly the new technology, any products and service that your company brings on stream, and the risk associated with it. I know Commonwealth Bank accepts cryptocurrency payments or transfers from cryptocurrency. Again, if you are working in that department, make sure that you understand the risk associated with these various technology, okay? And so it asks, how does technology change the supervisor's job? Back in the day, we didn't have to worry about risk. Now to worry about risk because of course we know there are a lot of hackers and scammers. We need to ensure that we know the risks associated with the new technology, and we need to know the controls to protect the organization if we are hacked or if we are scammed. Okay, so you want to ensure that you're aware of that. Are you ready, Vanique? Are you in places yet or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, so let's look at e-business at work.
Okay.
Because Scotiabank just announced that they have a new e-commerce platform. So Krista and Sydney, are we familiar with this e-commerce platform that Scotiabank is promoting?
No, I wasn't there when they announced that one. I was off
Okay.
a couple days.
Yeah, so they just announced it. So please go and find out about it because people are going to be asking and you want to be able to speak knowledgeably to it. Okay. Before this platform, persons, I think Lincoln Bain introduced a way to be able to accept payments internationally. So this with Scotiabank is a good development and basically for Bahamians that sell stuff online locally, how will they be able to, this e-commerce platform should be able to facilitate somebody in Jamaica saying I want to purchase this shirt from this Bahamian and let them FedEx it to me, whatever, I want to pay them online. So I am assuming that that e-platform would be able to facilitate. Okay, so e-business at work, Renee?
Okay. College faculty are fond of saying that the world of organizations is changing, and the only thing constant is change. There is no better evidence of these statements than the change in business brought about by the internet. This section highlights how computers and the internet are reshaping supervisory practices. To begin this discussion, let's take a look at what we mean by businesses, and what's unique about them. What is an e-business? Two terms that seem to cause considerable confusion need to be clarified: e-commerce and e-business. The term e-commerce is becoming the standard label to describe the online buying and selling of products or services. It encompasses presenting products on websites and filling orders. The vast majority of articles and media attention given to using the internet in business are directed at online shoppers, marketing and selling goods and services over the internet. When you hear about the tremendous number of people shopping on the internet and how businesses set up websites where they can sell goods, conduct transactions, get paid, and fulfill orders, you're hearing about e-commerce. It's a dramatic change in the way a firm relates to its customers. Online retail sales are expected to grow steadily from 2012 to 2017 with a projected 10% compound annual growth rate. Online sales in the form of e-commerce generated 231 billion in 2013 sales for US retailers and are expected to increase 13% to 262 billion in 2014. E-commerce, which already accounts for about 8% of total retail sales in the United States, is expected to outpace sales growth at brick and mortar stores.
Brick and mortar.
Brick,
They mean
brick and
just the building. If you were in a building, they consider you a brick and mortar store.
mortar. Okay.
Yeah.
Brick and mortar stores over the next several years, reaching 370 billion in sales by 2017, and eventually will account for a full tenth of all retail sales in the United States. Studies indicate that more smartphones and tablets are boosting the amount of time consumers spend online, and they are used to research purchases, find stores, and find the best prices available. You should be aware that 90% of e-commerce sales are business-to-business transactions. The vast majority of e-commerce sales are of products such as Intel chip sales to Dell or Goodyear sales to Ford, rather than to consumers like you and me buying computers or sweaters for personal consumption. In contrast, e-business refers to the full breadth of activities included in a successful internet-based enterprise. As such, e-commerce is a subset of e-business. E-business includes developing strategies for running internet-based companies, improving communication with suppliers and customers, collaborating with collaborating with partners to electronically coordinate design and production, identifying a different kind of leader to run a virtual business, finding skilled people to build and operate in intranets and websites, and running the back room or the administrative side. E-business includes creating new markets and customers, but it's also concerned with finding optimal ways to combine computers, the web, and applications software. And e-business uses the
Okay,
internet.
and we are all familiar, but 1 second, we are all familiar with the intranet, right? Each of our organizations, they have an intranet where we just share information. So all the policies and procedures are there, information that we need. And so that's what they call it, intranet. It's normally just related to the company. Do you all want to comment about bank?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, good. Go ahead. Okay. An e-business uses the internet.
Okay, an e-business uses the internet, a worldwide network of interconnected computers, intranets, and organizations' private network, and extranets
an extended intranet accessible only to selected employees and authorized outsiders to open up an organization's communication channels, making it possible to integrate and share information and allowing customers, suppliers, employees, and others to communicate with and through the organization on a real-time basis. Now that you have a better understanding of what an e-business is, let's turn our attention to some of the implications e-business will have for supervisors. Keep
Okay,
going.
and so you could drop, yeah, keep going. You could drop all the way down to the last paragraph that talks about employees have always been susceptible to distractions.
Okay. Employees have always been susceptible to distractions at work, such as interruptions by colleagues or personal phone calls. The internet, however, has significantly broadened these distractions to include surfing the net, checking Facebook, tweeting, playing online games, stock trading, shopping at work, and searching for other jobs online. Recent estimates indicate that a good portion of lost worker productivity is caused by cyber loafing. If the work itself isn't interesting or creates excessive stress, employees are likely to be motivated to do something else. If employees have easy access to the internet, that something else is increasingly using the net as a diversion. However, because smartphones and internet access make many employees as productive at home as at work, the off-hours activity may more than make up for non-work related pursuits at the office. How widespread is
Okay, and
wasting?
so what, let's stop there, Vanique. Let's stop
Okay.
right there. So are we having a problem with cyber loafing? Are cell phones allowed at work?
Yes, ma'am.
Your cell phone's allowed at work?
And yeah,
I don't know. I don't think that we are supposed to use our cell phones at work.
what you mean?
I don't think we are.
Like frontline staff, like the tellers? No, they can't use their
Wait, now
phones.
let's please go get your code of conduct or your employee handbook
I think
tomorrow
that in policy, like
and
I think
find
it's
out. What
I mean,
about
but
you?
like,
No, no, absolutely not. Nah, Miss Bullet old school, and I can tell you all about a letter I got about a month ago. Candace, cell phones allowed at work?
Yes, ma'am. Only
Really?
the tellers can't use them. Yeah, only the tellers can use them because cell phones are the way that we communicate with our clients. Each department has their own cell phone.
No, nah, wait.
personal cell
No,
phones.
your personal cell phone, Candace.
I mean, we need it in order to get into our computer, so I guess.
Okay, so like this what weekend this is now, Black Friday. So you trying to tell me that you could go sit to your desk and you could pull up Walmart and all these different shopping arenas, or are they blocked?
Yeah, you could no,
pull it up on your
aren't blocked.
phone.
Yeah, they aren't blocked.
Okay, what about you, Clinton? They're not blocked? Is Clinton there?
Actually, no, they're not. Our work computers aren't locked either for, I guess, Walmart and Amazon. I know those are open. But no, we
Try to know
actually
by experience.
ourselves, well, I don't know if it's the company policy, but my boss sure like to call me on my cell phone whilst I'm at my desk. So I don't know.
Okay, please, I want all of y'all to go read your employee handbook tomorrow and find out if your personal cell phone is allowed at work. And I'm very surprised that all these sites are not blocked, because in some companies, these sites are blocked. And if they are not blocked, compliance is tasked with looking at your history to see exactly how you spent time on, it's being tracked. So please make sure that you're not being tracked, because people cyber loafing all day and getting pulled in and getting fired over their history. They've been on Walmart, this shopping, that shopping, next shopping. Make sure, okay? Because I know that's a compliance task. I got a letter about a month ago that said we were in a board meeting and somebody's secretary was there taking the minutes, and they said during taking the minutes, they wrote this long 2-page letter that, to their knowledge, the secretary does not have a authorized phone that belongs to the company, because only senior management has phones that belong to the company. However, this secretary sat in a board meeting and was constantly picking up her cell phone, and they would want me to investigate as to if she was doing something pertaining to the board meeting, or how is it that she was allowed to even bring her personal cell phone into the board meeting. Okay, so you all please read your employee handbook and find out if it is indeed allowed. If you are supposed to be on it, and definitely, like I say, I doubt it is allowed. It's just a common cultural practice. So please be discreet, and definitely don't take your cell phone into no meetings if it's not like Candace says, they have a phone that is from the organization. That's the phone that you're allowed to use. And I'm sure you don't cyber loaf on that. You don't go pulling up jcpenney.com. Okay, so y'all please make sure that nobody is in the background looking at your history to find out exactly what you online doing. Okay, y'all do the people work. I'm certain all these say Amazon is not allowed. Back in the day, they used to block it out. Now, sometimes they just let you have your way so they can use it against you. So just be careful and cognizant of what your employee handbook says. Because I know a lot of us is just walk around, we just be in meetings, texting and doing all sorts of stuff, and people are watching. Okay, so find out and train your staff accordingly.
Now, but I will say now that they do the background. You can't, they do have, I'm sure they monitor it. They do, because they can sign into your computer remotely. I think all organizations have that. My previous organization did the same thing. Well, I mean, well, for my industry is a little different, because for us, sometimes when we have to make large purchases, we anything. But I know they sometimes require staff to go look for certain items online.
Yeah, but make sure it's at a minimum. Make sure nobody's watching you go on your phone, and don't get caught up in this Black Friday on the people, because I can tell you it'll be monitored definitely this holiday, because a lot of people will be over excessively cyber loafing. Okay, so be careful of that. Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So you saying that they monitoring you on your personal cell phone?
No. They no. What I'm saying is they are watching you physically on your, to say cell phones are not allowed. Why is Beneath walking around with her cell phone, answering calls and texting in the middle of the day? Cell phones are not allowed at work. Personal ones. You see what I mean? And then what Glenda is saying is that they have access. They don't have to walk up to your computer to find out if you've been cyber loafing, if you've been on JCPenney. They can just channel into your computer and see what you online doing, or they will look at your history to see what you were online doing. Okay, so make sure.
I know that for Commonwealth Bank, everybody doesn't have access to the web browser unless it has something to do with your job description. that requires you to go use the web, you don't have access to the web.
Right. But for the ones that have it, please don't be cyberloafing, because somebody can, you know what I mean, you could get into problems for it. But read your employee handbook, okay, to see if your personal cell phone is allowed. And if your personal cell phone isn't allowed, don't bring it out your bag until you go to lunch. Or be very discreet if you sit in a cubicle. Don't have it on your desk. Don't be telling your boss, hold on, let you get this call. Don't be out in the common areas texting. You go to the bathroom if you out in the area, the public or eyesight, or you go outside, but be discreet. Because I know a lot of people when they got written up for that because it's not allowed. Go ahead, Candace.
I wanted to answer Vanique's question about them monitoring when you're on your personal cell phone. I know at my company, once you are connected to the company's Wi-Fi, they can actually see the websites that you're going on. Like, they can't see who phone it is, but they can see the type of phone it is that is going on the different websites. But if you're on mobile data, they can't see that you're using your phone on different websites.
Right. That's another way they track it through the Wi-Fi. Yeah, but like I said, this young lady was sitting in a board meeting taking the minutes. And I am telling you, that board member wrote a 2-page essay on please confirm whether that is a company initiated phone or a personal cell phone. And if it was a personal cell phone, was she doing something pertaining to the board meeting? And they want a response. Okay, so be careful. Look at your handbook and find out. Okay. So y'all go delete your histories tomorrow. No evidence. Yeah. But just don't do it excessively. Don't minimize it, and keep all those things to your personal cell phone. And like I said, be discreet when you use it, because every time we hacked into somebody's computer to get information because we were investigating them, the things that we found. This lady, they say they wipe the computers. However, they wipe the computer and just give it to the next new person. And I was called in as compliance because she had left, and the Google save, where it could save your password and save this. She had saved her CIBC banking information in Google, her access to her Gmail, all her personal information. And luckily, this person was honest, because if that was somebody else, they would sit right there, watch her bank accounts, be in her personal Gmail and all. And she had pictures of her and her husband and her family and all sorts of personal stuff. So please do not save your banking information on your work computer or any computer that you use outside of your own personal computer, or any, save Gmail. And then our execs had Apple computers, and it was very difficult. Once you sign into Gmail once, Apple is like, keep that. You have to do all sorts of stuff just to sign out of Gmail. So definitely, if you're using an Apple computer, please be careful, because that saves everything. And people who come behind you can access all your personal information. And y'all know, of course, everybody in honest. All right, so be careful. Don't save any passwords or anything like that personal. Okay. Good, that's cyberloafing. We get the drift. Okay, so we've covered workforce diversity already. And the book just says that the composition of the workforce to include men, women, whites, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans, people with disabilities. And in fact, I went to a conference yesterday, and a lady with a disability, she was one of the presenters. And that's how she started off. She was talking about diversity and inclusion, and she was just mentioning that all around the world, when you hear diversity, you're thinking either race, black or white, and inclusion, of course, you're thinking about the LGBTQ, RX, whatever the name is. And so she said, but are we aware that it includes disabled persons as well? And, she was there to educate us on disability. And she was talking about how she has been on 10 interviews before she started her own company, where she looks excellent on paper and she has her degree and everything for whatever job she was applying for. But when she asked them if they have access for her to get up the stairs, they canceled the interview. So the next time she didn't ask, and she had a difficulty. They didn't have access, so it took her a long while to get up. And she was like, "Y'all, could y'all fix this?" So they didn't hire her. And then it was one place that didn't have stairs, and she was able to get in. But when they saw that she had one leg, they didn't hire her. So she said it just basically took her 10 times of being snubbed before she opened up her own business. So when we become future leaders and in these positions where we are, please know that you know um the world is changing. Another big topic that is being discussed outside of climate change and digital assets is diversity and inclusion and equality. There's a big thing with the gender pay gap in America of a man versus a woman. And I think we saw it happen in the movies where some actor was paid 3 times as much as an actress, and she spoke out, or she did not take the role, and she went to the media with it. So these are very big topics, that you, as you become future leaders, you would need to study so you are knowledgeable, to all the facts. And so, of course, it's a big thing in America now with the sharing of the bathrooms, and we discussed that already. And I'm certain that we are prepared for, whoever walks through the doors, and we try not to be judgmental. Okay, just as the majority of us are black, and we don't want white people to discriminate against us. We should not discriminate against different nationalities. We should not discriminate against people who identify as another gender. And so you really want to be educated enough to, even if this person looks like a male and they wish to be called she, that's all a part of diversity and inclusion. There's a joke going around where a woman walked into a store who was obviously a transgender woman, and the cashier said, "How may I help you today, sir?" And she said, "It's ma'am." And then the cashier insisted to call, the transgender person sir. Okay, so we don't want to get caught up in those conundrums. If that's me offering a service, it's supposed to be a white glove service. We don't have to agree. This person isn't coming home to live with us. Okay, and then remember, we are following the motto, the values, the goals of the company that we work for, and the company that we work for supports diversity and inclusion. Correct? Correct. Okay. Any questions so far? Are we good so far? Good? Okay. So then we move on to downsizing. And of course, we talked about Twitter and what's happening, and downsizing, a reduction in the workplace and reshaping of operations to create lean and mean organizations. The goals of organizational downsizing are greater efficiency and reduced costs. Okay, and not in all cases. We talked about the Twitter situation, and of course, we know before we already talked about the layoff sickness, where the people who remain, they overwhelmed or they are saddened because they lost their co-workers. There is also, we saw that, for the first time, Royal Bank always says they've been around for from 1908, more than 100 years, Scotia more than 60 years. And for the first time after, laws changed in 218, we saw a contraction of all their branches, definitely throughout the family islands. Most of those branches were lost. Then we saw a lot of outsourcing, um, functions being sent to cheaper jurisdictions, Trinidad and Dominican Republic. But of course, that has changed and Jamaica, that has changed, the culture of the Bahamas financial services sector, because they just don't do business the way we do business. And so, we've had a lot of service complaints, due to this downsizing. But a lot of it is because regulation is expensive, and companies just couldn't afford to hire, put all these policies and procedures in place and then hire people to enforce them. Okay. And then to train and all the requirements that go along with training. You need a system to monitor, and to assist you and point out when things are not or at risk. Okay, so we saw a lot of downsizing recently. And so what I always encourage persons to do is, nobody ever got rich from 9 to 5. You need at least 5 revenue streams. Do not be dependent on one job. Okay, so see out there what you are talented or how you are talented, and make some investments whilst you are young. And so, you want to teach your children this, and so you're not heavily dependent on one job. And I always say that if you want, your children to go to private school, if you want to travel and live comfortably with air conditioning, because BEC is very expensive, you at least need a second income for just BEC, school fees, and travel. Okay, so brainstorm again with your network and within your family, and see where you can invest. And it doesn't have to be in the same sector, because I always say my various streams are, I am a licensed mortician, right? Then I had a 9 to 5. Then I invested in the fishing industry. Then I have apartments, right? And other investments. So it doesn't have to be, if you could bake cakes, okay? And put them out on Facebook and learn about e-commerce and e-business. Don't use this Black Friday, take that money and buy something that you could turn over, not just dress up and look good, right? But buy something that's on sale that you could Christmas, hold it till Christmas, and then make a profit on it. Okay, so just think about it. Okay, so we want to go over to how to react responsibly. And again, like I said earlier, this ESG issues, big debate going on sustainability and environmental, carbon credits and all these sorts of things. So we want to look over to, let me see which page you would be on. Page 48 on what is what is a socially responsible organization. And of course, we normally think about, at Christmas we all give to the Children's Emergency Hostel. I know one bank that adopted the Palmdale Primary School, and they go out there and they help all the children with their homework. They adopted a class, and so each employee sits with one of the children. I think it's in grade 6, and they mentor them, helping them to get ready for 7th grade, to change into high school. Then of course, all of us have worked the Red Cross Fair on a volunteer basis, or the food festival, or what have you. So social responsibility has now evolved, right? And so let's see um, where it's going. Anything else out there that we're doing socially? Y'all there? Anybody? Crystal? Candace?
Yes, ma'am, well, our branch every year, does to feed a family, like our Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So we come together, and I think it's in collaboration with a civic group, I think Kiwanis, I think. And so
Okay.
we like our Thanksgiving tomorrow. Last year we fed one whole family. This year we trying to feed three.
Okay.
So yeah.
Very good. Very good. So be socially conscious of what's going on and how you can give back. What about you, Clinton? Is your organization practicing social responsibility? Any donations or volunteering?
Well, I'm not sure about the entire organization, but for my department, we're adopting the hostel as well this year.
Okay, excellent, excellent, very good, very good. There's a lot of people out there that are hurting and that need help. So it's very good. Okay, Beneath, what is a socially responsible organization? And these are good um definitions, and of course then we'll go on to ethics. Go ahead.
Social responsibility is an obligation that organizations have to society. It means going beyond the law and profit making. Social responsibility tries to align organizational long term goals with what is good for society. Society in this context refers to such groups as an organization's employees, its customers, and the environment in which it operates. We can understand social responsibility better if we compare it with two similar concepts: social obligation and social responsiveness. Social obligation is the foundation of a business's social involvement. A business has fulfilled its social obligation when it meets its economic and legal responsibilities and no more. It does the minimum that the law requires. In contrast to social obligation, both social responsibility and social responsiveness go beyond merely meeting basic economic and legal standards. Social responsiveness adds a moral obligation to do those things that make society better and not to do those that could make it worse. Social responsiveness then requires business to determine what is right or wrong and thus seek fundamental truths. Societal norms guide this process. Let's look at these two in an example to make them clearer. When a company meets pollution control standards established by the federal government or doesn't discriminate against employees on the basis of their race in a promotion decision, the organization is fulfilling its social obligation and nothing more. Various laws say that employers may not pollute or be biased against certain groups, and this company is abiding by those laws. However, when a company packages its products in recycled paper or provides healthcare insurance for an unmarried employee's significant other, this firm is being socially responsive. How so? Although pressure may be coming from a number of societal groups, such businesses are providing something society desires without having to be told to do so by law. It's often easy for us to sit back and talk about a company being socially responsible, but what about when they become us? Socially responsible behavior for individuals brings the matter a little closer to home. Keep going.
Yes. How do we act responsibly?
Many people believe that our society is currently suffering a moral crisis. Behaviors that were once thought reprehensible, lying, cheating, misrepresenting, covering up mistakes, have become, in many people's eyes, common business practices. Products that can cause harm to their users remain on the market. Males in one large organization have been alleged to have sexually harassed their female counterparts. How about in business, and more specifically, the job of supervisors? What kinds of questionable issues might a supervisor face? Here are a few general questions related to supervisory actions. Should you tell the truth all the time? Is it right to bend the rules to your company's advantage whenever you can? Does anything go as long as you don't get caught? Now consider a couple of specific cases. Is it proper for one of your salespeople to offer a bribe to a purchasing agent as an inducement to buy? Is it wrong to use the company telephone for personal long distance calls? Supervisors face many dilemmas. Situations exist in which they're required to define right and wrong conduct. Because of their comments and behavior, supervisors are a primary source for conveying an organization's climate. For most employees, their supervisor is the only contact they have with management. As such, management standards are interpreted by employees through the actions of their supervisor. If supervisors take company supplies home, cheat on their expense accounts, or engage in similar practices, they set a tone in their work groups that is likely to undermine all the efforts by top management to create a corporate climate of high principle standards. In large companies such as American Express and Exxon, supervisors have codes of conduct to guide them as to what constitutes acceptable and unacceptable practices. These are often formal documents that state an organization's primary values and the ethical rules it expects employees to follow. As organizations apply increased pressure on supervisors and employees to cut costs and increase productivity, ethical dilemmas are almost certain to increase. By what they say and do, supervisors contribute towards setting their organization standards. Organizations must be on guard against the appearance of impropriety in any form. The time-honored practice of suppliers offering free tickets or discounts to organizational purchasing agents or restaurants offering free or discounted meals to police officers may raise the suspicion of outside observers and call into question the
Impartiality. Mhm.
impartiality of future business and police decisions. What supervisors want from their employees is for them to act ethically. What exactly is the thing we call ethics?
Okay, and do any of us know, are we using the paper? Are we using the phone for long distance calls because our order didn't go through on Amazon? Do we see, improper use? Do we have a code of conduct policy that we are all familiar with? Do we have um, an ethics policy, or is ethics included in the code of conduct policy? Do we have a gifts policy that says that um, no staff is able to accept more than $100 as a Christmas gift? Because I worked to wealth management. We had like the Bacardis, and each year, he would buy us like perfume and stuff like that for Christmas. And sometimes, you know, he bought us very expensive bottles of perfumes, and he was in Italy and he had bought us a $300 perfume, and we could not accept it because the gifts policy said it was $100 of value or less that you could receive from a customer as a gift. Anything else would be considered a bribe. Do we have that code of conduct? Are we familiar? Do we have that gifts policy, Krista? Any?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And is the limit
Yes,
still
we do too.
$100?
But I know our gifts policy. I don't think that we are allowed to accept gifts at all.
It's
I think we must
$10
have it at like minimal value.
or $10 or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. But see, we was wealth management, so yeah, ours was 100. What about y'all, Krista?
$50.
Okay, okay. And are people honoring that? If you do get a gift, are we taking it into our managers or into compliance and saying, listen, I don't want to offend the customer, but the customer just left this at my desk.
Yeah,
Or
with
what this was
Scotiabank.
delivered.
Yeah, with Scotiabank, we actually have to declare it.
Okay,
So it's mandatory to declare it.
okay. And all of this is written. We are familiar with the code of conduct.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, okay, good, good. Okay, so the book goes on to talk about ethics, and it talks about ethics both in chapter 2 and chapter 7. So we will just cover it once. We don't need to talk about it twice. And there are 3 views on ethics. The utilitarian view, where decisions are based solely on the basis of outcomes. A goal is to provide the greatest good for the greatest number, or tends to dominate business decision making. And then there's the rights view. Decisions emphasize respect and protecting the basic rights of individuals. Or decision making is consistent with the fundamental liberties and privileges as set forth in documents like the Bill of Rights. And then there's the justice view. Impose and enforce rules fairly and impartially so that there's an equitable distribution of benefits and costs. And this is typically favored by unions. Okay, so of course, when there are different views and a group of persons, I always say, where there's a group of persons, we don't live in perfect. Not everybody is going to think, the same way. And so what is good to find out is exactly what view, your team members follow. And so you don't want to jump off the bat and say that they are, acting unethically. Okay, so the book says ethics are rules or principles that define right and wrong conduct. And hopefully you would be taught this at home. And unfortunately, most persons are not taught this at home, or their view and the teachings under their view was completely different. I'm not saying that one is right and the next is wrong, but it's just outside of the normal ethical realm. And so therefore we find that we are, lots of conflicts, at work when we have to make decisions. And so I've been watching, a lot of shows on Netflix that, I'm trying to understand. It's always more unethical persons than ethical persons. And so it's very difficult, when the culture of an organization is that we don't tell the truth. If we use our judgment, we don't follow policy and procedure, or we don't respect positions, and we don't have time for compliance, and we don't have time for, what the manager say, this is the way we is always do it. We got to do it the quickest way. And we definitely don't have time to read. If that's the culture, you'll find that those types of organizations are, they last for a period of time, but in the end, they don't end up, successful. Are we taking this gift policy serious? If somebody does bring in a gift for $200, are we saying, boy, being, or, being reporting that? Or if the company says tips are not allowed, like the government entities, some have signs up that says do not tip, and persons are still taking tips just to do their jobs. Okay, you want to ensure that you are not placed in a position where somebody will say, you know, they are bribing you, or you are speeding up a process because they give you that little thing on the side. You know, I know it's systemic and it happens a lot, but you have to be very careful because people have lost their job where persons were able to jump the line and tip. And when they were not able to jump the line, they scream out, but I give Lanique $20 every time. Right? So you have to, you know, really wonder if it would, you know. So you want to ensure that you act ethically. And like I said, I was watching a lot of programs on Netflix where you know, this FTX whole situation was going down with the cryptocurrency. So many powerhouses or persons who would have worked for Fortune 500 companies in America would have done this same thing before, and there was no repercussion. And then they were awarded, you know, bonuses. Then they were given very high positions in the government, in the US government. And so therefore, if you are a young person coming up, and these are your examples, and these are men and women who you respect, and they got away with it, you could feel like you could get away with it too. So I almost feel like you know, the FTX people, they're very young, but they were trained to you know, beat the system. And the other guys, like I said, who were promoted after the credit crunch and the mortgage subprime loan crisis, nothing happened to them. Excuse me, they didn't go to jail. And so therefore, you know, we lead by example, correct? And so if they are getting away with it, why doesn't everybody else feel like, you know, they could get away with it? So it's difficult. Corporate Bahamas is very vicious. Normally what happens in America, they sneeze, it happens right here. So the same thing has happened in America. In fact, Fred Mitchell put something in the newspaper yesterday where, you know, somebody in America suggested that the Bahamas is very scandalous. And his rebuttal was, can America talk about a scandal? Can America call another country scandalous, as, you know, saying America is the most scandalous nation in the world? Okay. However, like Krista talked about status quo, we have to change, you know, some of these precepts. We ought to do what is right. We can make it. We have to train our persons to know that you don't have to step on the next person to get to the top. You don't have to lie and cheat the system to be successful. Okay. And we now have to learn the right way. You know, I always say both the PLP and the F&M, wash them all out. We don't want none of their children, none of their grandchildren. We need a complete wash and start over, because the unethicalness, if that's a word, is they've been raised in that, and so they don't know no other way. Okay, so hopefully we can raise, you know, you may say, Miss Bullet, you're very optimistic, but why not? We can raise up, you know, groups of men and women who will take over these future leaders, who will act ethically and follow policy, follow procedure, and still be successful. Okay, that's our hope. That's what we are working towards. Okay. Okay, good. Any questions on chapter 2? I see social responsibility being probably the essay question that may come out of there. But as far as when we go to the review, we will determine, you know, what will be on the final exam. But normally I've seen in the past the essay question being on social responsibility. Okay. Any questions? You're very quiet. You're still there, or you're asleep?
We still here.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so it looks like we lost Sydney completely. Okay, so thank you very much, Renique. Excellent job. You're always reliable, and I know it was difficult to be in the car trying to get home, fighting all that traffic, and yet you still was very resilient. So I appreciate that, and that's like what happens with supervisors. Like, it may not be the best time, and you still have to perform, but you still did a very good job nevertheless. So thank you. Um, so now chapter 7, and this how we know we ready for the next step. Okay, so very good. Okay, so our last and final chapter, and again, like I said, we only gonna cover what is important, which will be tested on. Just at this point, we don't want to give you message overload. Okay, and for chapter 7, um, it talks about the decision-making process. So everything on the final exam again too, in the past, the decision-making process was the essay question previously as well. But I think one year we had asked the class to pick, for some reason, the class wasn't getting with the multiple choice questions that was bringing down their grades. And so they said, Miss Bullitt, we only want essay questions. So I think one exam was like, they had the choice of writing 3 essays, I think, or 2 essays out of 5 choices, something to that effect. And that worked for them. But they said they don't want any multiple choice questions. So I think this decision-making process was one of those essays. Okay. And so the book says the decision-making process is a 7-step process that provides a rational and analytical way of looking at decisions. The steps include identification of the problem, collection of relevant information, development of alternatives, evaluation of the alternative, selection of the best alternative, implementation of the decision, and follow-up and evaluation. Um, how do you identify the problem? How do you then collect relevant information? So identifying the problem, and book says a problem can cause a discrepancy between an existent and a desired state of affairs. And then it talks about certainty. Certainty exists when the outcome and every alternative are known. As you might expect, most supervisors' decisions aren't this clear cut. And so, how do you identify the problem? In the decision-making process, it begins with identifying the existence of a problem. In the real world, problems don't always come out with neon signs, identifying them as such. Many of the problems you will confront aren't obvious as Carol's dilemma. One of the most difficult chores in this stage then is separating symptoms from problems. Is a 5% decline in sales a problem, or are declining sales merely a symptom of the problem, such as product obsolescence or an inadequate advertising budget? To use other problems such as product obsolescence or an adequate advertising budget, to use a medical analogy, aspirin does not deal with the problem of stress on the job. It merely relieves the headache symptom. One last point, solving the wrong problem perfectly is no better outcome and may be worse than coming up with the wrong solution to the right problem. Identifying the real problem is not an easy task and should not be taken lightly. So for Carol Prince, suddenly having a half-hour gap in her early evening program schedule, which she once filled with profitable high-rated shows. Okay, I kind of mixed that up. Okay, so let me start from the beginning. In decision-making process begins by identifying the existence of a problem, or more specifically, a discrepancy between an existent and a desired state of affairs. And then it goes on to say, for Carol Prince, it's suddenly having a half-hour gap in her early evening program schedule, which she once filled with profitable high-rated shows. in the real world, problems don't always come with neon signs, okay? And a lot of times with identifying the problem, we miss, we want to get over it quickly. We want to decide. We don't research. We don't investigate to see exactly what is the root problem. And not only on the job, in the real world, it's very important to ensure that we see what the root problem is in solving, identifying the problem so we can get to the bottom of, what is really causing the problem, because we don't want to put a band-aid, like people say, on a wound that may need stitches. Okay. Do we find that, and I think we talked about this in another chapter, where we said we just out fires all day long. Do we ever go back? And I think it was Lanique. Do we ever go back and actually identify the real true problem and see exactly what happened, Lanique? Do we make time for that? Do we document after we would have put a fire out?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, so we out there collecting the relevant information, which is the next one. So you identify the real root, which is very good. And then you go and collect relevant information. So all facts relevant to the problem requires quality of information, which means we want to talk to the people involved. We all know what happens with secondary data, right? Secondary data is normally incorrect, maybe based on a problem that they previously had. And then that secondary person may have added something on, right? So you want to make sure that you receive facts and quality of the information. And you want to then document what happened, why it happened, and then you want to decide how we can resolve it. Okay, and then developing alternatives. This is a creative endeavor that should embrace any or all alternatives. So again, we work in a very diverse world. We saw that there are three different views of ethics, right? And so we don't want to always think that our view or our way is the right way. And I think we talked about this, Fanique, last week when, I suggested that if somebody says you heard them, don't try and change their mind. Don't try and say, well, I didn't intend to, or well, you can apologize, but hear that person and find out from them, how can I make this up to you? Okay, how I hear you, you want to hear the person, and you want to find out what would make it up for them, not for you. Okay, because that person is hurt. Okay, so the more alternatives you can generate, the better your final solution will be. And again, ask them, like I say, for their opinion, and write it down, and then you can make suggestions. If they say, well, I really don't know, I may just need some time. Um, you know, the important thing is that the solution is satisfactory not only to the person, but to you as well. Okay, and then evaluate each alternatives. There's something called a SWOT analysis, and you don't have to go into that detail, but you want to look at the strengths of this alternative, or the weaknesses of this alternative. Then you want to look at, will this cost the organization any money? Will this cost the person any money? One day, years ago, I started off as a teller. I had left my teller, my keys home, and I didn't have a car. And my supervisor told me, well, I need to go back home and get my keys. And I was just sitting there thinking, well, can you go in the vault and get my keys for me? But she insisted that I take my lunch hour and go home. and get these keys. So I said that for a very long time. Then I finally built up the nerve and to tell her that, well, I don't have a car. I probably would have to take the bus to go home, and I doubt that'll be a lunch hour. Okay. So just what would the cost be to the organization or the person? And then how long will it take? And what would be the best case scenario and the worst case scenario? And then again, guard against your own biases. This is why before you make any suggestions, try and get that person to talk and give you as much information as possible. Okay. And then it says select the best alternative. So now it's time to make decisions. So you would have already collected information, which are fact and the root problem. And then you have the alternatives because you would have asked. And then you would have found out how long this could take, what would be the cost, what's the best or the worst that could happen. And then you decide. Okay. And so you want to make sure that you make the best decision possible. And it's good to, because I work in compliance, and most of the time it's good to, at this time and this date, I made this decision because this was the laws at this time. 2 years from now, this might be the worst decision possible. So it's good to keep as much notes as possible, especially if you're doing somebody's review. You say this happened in March. So you would know that in March, the pandemic didn't start yet. Then for the rest of the year, it was the pandemic. And so, okay, I understand that. Okay. Or like for Lanique's case that she shared with us last week, she was pregnant. So everything she do, just let it be a wash. I mean, we don't want gross negligence, but and so you would have implemented the decision. And don't be afraid to make the wrong decision. And don't be afraid to say that I am sorry. I thought with the information I had, I made the best decision at the time. But a lot of people, because of pride, they make a decision, and the Lord have to come for them to change that, for them to say that they're wrong. Okay, so be ethical. Okay, know that if this was you, and this is how I made most of my decision. If I did something wrong and this was me, how would I have wanted to be treated? Okay, and I put myself in this position, and I try and make the best decision if it was me. Okay, and then follow up and evaluate. Did anything change? Did you accomplish the result? Did it correct the problem? Yes or no? Okay, and that's another thing where we drop the ball. We never even find out if it was the right decision or not. We forget about it, or we say it was fixed, but it was fixed or not. Okay, and because I used to audit, I normally say you check sustainability after 90 days. So especially if it's a training issue, you train somebody today, you follow up with them by the end of the week, you check them by the end of the month, and then you sign off and consider them trained if they're still doing it properly. But then you follow up in 90 days for sustainability, because it was fresh in their mind. It may not have been a function that they carry out every day. And they was in a training session, so of course they try to remember it. However, if they didn't do it for 2 weeks, will they still remember how to do it properly? And that's why you check sustainability. Okay, this is why you make sure that they take notes. Okay. Any questions? Are we clear on the decision-making process?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You're very quiet though. Okay, so then the book goes on to talk about how do we improve on decision-making. And again, this is what we talked about earlier. Brainstorming. a technique for overcoming pressures for conformity that retard the development of creative alternatives, an idea generating process that specifically encourage alternatives while withholding criticism of those alternatives. Okay, you have a 10-member team. Like I say, no man is an island. Take advantage of that 10-member team. Encourage them to, in your meetings, to speak up. Encourage them to be innovative. Encourage them to document their thoughts, because we are all into this together. We are working together, one team, one goal, and everybody is valuable and everybody has a contribution, or I wouldn't hire you. Right? So here it is. We have an entire asset out there that a lot of times, like in the past, we are not taking advantage of. Okay, so I'm pleased to know and hear that, that looking at the suggestion box, taking it seriously and following up with this staff. I'm pleased that there are more employee opinion surveys. And I know in my day, we had the employee opinion survey, and my boss was very happy. He was in Canada, he was very happy to put my scores on my, if one person say Miss Bullet didn't do like my overall rating in those employee opinion surveys wasn't right, that was on my performance appraisal. Okay, so you want to make sure that you fill those out, and that even management is held accountable to make the proper changes. Okay, and so that's it. We talked about ethics already, and like I said, I didn't want to fill you up too much. Just brainstorming and the decision-making process and ethics out of that chapter, and that's it. We did it.
Yay!
Yay. And then Miss Bullet talking about so we can work on our mentoring. But I really hope that I think the book is a really good book, and I think it's a good read. So in your spare time, read it, and it will help you. There are everyday situations that happen, and you can just read it to get a point of view of where your mind should be, like on what level should you be thinking, or how how your decision should be based. Okay, once you out that fire underneath, then go back and do your research.
But I have a question about it, right? With decision making, there are some things that in some cases where you can't really make a decision right away. You have to make a decision right away. That's what I meant to say. So like when you have to make a decision right away, do you think you're using all of these, or do you think some are skipped up as opposed to when you have time to think it through?
No, we out in the fire first, like Lanique said. Remember, we talked about that in the last chapter. Throughout the day, we just out in fires. Whatever the quickest, when we are working with time. So the most timeliest decision is it is what's called for. We don't have time to stop. Pull this one off the line of the door. Nobody can come off the line right now and come to my office and sit down and be comforted. That can't happen. We have to have a power talk and out this fire, and please stay back after work or on your lunch hour, come see me or something like that.
Yeah, so, that's what I was wondering, like if it's like realistic that you will have time to do this right then.
No, you won't. No, you won't. But you have to put the fire out. You have to put the fire out right then, and then you go. And if you are angry, I would say delay it for at least 48 hours. Okay. I have told people where I was really angry, I can see you in 30 days. Okay, because I wanted to calm right down and think straight. Okay, so 48 hours. If you're upset, don't send no email, don't respond, no nothing, but immediately out that fire and then come back and pick it up and go through those steps. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, guys, any other questions or concerns?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Just about the mentorship thing. What if your mentee doesn't desire to give feedback? Or like what if it doesn't end in a positive manner?
Okay, so we attribute it to life, Anik. All interactions won't end positively. And so you just write what you have learned from this experience and perhaps what you would do differently next time, or say that you wouldn't let this discourage you in trying, in your continuation to mentor, the young people, because we don't have been perfect. Some people go accept you and some people will reject you. You can't just stop when you are rejected. You move on to the next person. Okay, you still have value, you still have something to share. Somebody will see the light in you and appreciate you 100%. He may not be the person. Okay, so don't be discouraged, and you just say, would you learn from this whole situation?
Okay.
Yeah, but it's just important for you not to give up. Continue to let your light shine.
Okay.
Yeah. And there will be other people out there. Like I tell you, throughout my career, sometimes I was on the mountain, and sometimes I was in the valley. If you ask people about Miss Bullet, you just need to know when you're on the mountain or when you're in the valley. I had supervisors and managers that loved me. I'm the godparents to their children. They're the godparents to mine. We have 20-year friendships, right? And then I had some people that absolutely hate me. Because there's no in between for Miss Bullet. You either love me or you hate me. There's no, you could stand me sometimes. No, it's a love or hate relationship with Miss Bullet. You could ask some people about me now, and some people will sing my praises. Some other people, they say, you build the Miss Bullet class, you wasting your life, you won't learn nothing. Okay, so it just depends. And so when Royal Bank closed down, they had parties for everybody, and I stood up there, and they wanted us to thank everybody and say about our career and whatever. I hate these little speeches, but anyway, I stood up there and I thank the people that had their foot on my neck my entire career, because they helped me to develop a stronger relationship with the Lord. I couldn't miss church because I know I had to finish them Monday morning and I couldn't kill them. So I needed the grace of God, the full armor of God to go with me every Monday morning to not commit a murder. Okay, so I thank them because they made me stay current, because I always had to prove myself. I couldn't miss a seminar. I couldn't stop going to school. I couldn't do all these stuff because they were constantly on my neck. But they made me who I am today, so I thank them. Okay, so some will sing your praises, some will keep their foot on your neck. Both is what you need. The Bible says it was good that I am afflicted, or that I was afflicted. Okay, so don't worry about people and who's that rejection. You need that as well as the praises. Both are beneficial to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But see, all what we do is like Lanique taught us. 90% of our thoughts are negative, and we don't affirm ourselves. We keep this negativity to the realm, to the helm of us. We are constantly thinking negative. We constantly worrying about who don't like us or who this. No, affirm yourself. Meditate regularly.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and keep yourself encouraged, and you will
Start
be
your
okay.
day off with prayer.
Yeah, yeah. Fight those voices in your head that tell you that you ain't worthy, or these people talking, or fight them and just say, who cares? And go to work. Like I say, the only way I see, and I've been in the financial services industry for more than 25 years. The only way I see to make it on any job, because Clinton was in financial services, now she in medical services, she has the same problems we have. You have to go to work as if you work for the Lord. That's the only way, or you'll always be overworked, underpaid, feeling undervalued, feeling that you could do better. Show up every day that you work for the Lord, and then you'll be okay. That's the only way. And prayer. But like I say, we are here. You are the future leaders. Okay? And you are on the right track. And you stay on the right track. You may fall off here or there, and you will be fine. And some of these same principles, like I say, put them in your family, make the right decisions at home, be fair at home, create paradise at home, create an ambiance that after I've been to war all day, I come home and I relax and I unwind, and this my safe space for me to feel good. And you will be rejuvenated the next morning to wake up and go in and make a difference, because a lot of us are burnt out. Going to work and school is very, very hard. Dealing with children and husbands, very hard. Okay, so take some time. You have to demand some time. You have to take some time for yourself. You have to organize yourself that one day you don't have nothing to do. And it can't be Sunday when you go into church, so you need, or even half a day. But you have to unwind and find an outlet, or you will be burnt out. Okay, so take care of yourselves and keep being great and doing good work. And you all have lots to offer, so please help rep the young people properly. Okay, so go work on your projects and submit them on time, and I look forward to the presentations next week.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so have a good evening, and I'll see you all next week.
Evening, everyone.
Okay.
Good
Good
evening,
night.
all. See you all next week.
Evening.